Hi everyone, my name is Bill. This is my first YouTube video. I will be talking to you guys about wound management in the wilderness and in a setting that is resource scarce. So say that you come across a hiker who needs your help and you see this 4-inch laceration on his forearm. So the first thing you want to do is you want to expose the wound, remove any piece of clothing that's covering the wound, and you want to assess the length, depth, penetration, any exit. You want to look for debris if it's a clean wound versus a dirty wound. So after you've successfully irrigated the wound, next thing you want to do is make determination whether you want to keep it open or closed. And I know most of the time the rule of thumb is to keep it open, but once you've made a determination that the wound is very clean and you have pretty good confidence that you've irrigated the wound pretty well, and you're about a day or two from the nearest medical treatment facility, so in that case, I will proceed with the technique that I'm about to show you. Essentially involves bringing together two pieces of duct tape and securing it with a sewing needle. You're essentially cinching together the wound without physically suturing the wound together. So you would take a piece of tape and you want to measure it along its length. You just want to basically cut a piece of tape that's enough to cover the wound along its length. Okay, and so on the arm shown here, I've used the red marker to indicate the length of the wound as well as the width of the gaping gap. And so now I've cut a piece of tape like so, measure to make sure that it will fit the length. And now what I do is I fold along the edge of it, and I fold the sticky side to the sticky side. Okay, so I create this non-sticky side. All right, and now I take the sticky side, I tape it to one side of the wound. And you see what I'm doing here is I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So now I create a space where the non-sticky side is laying over the wound. Into space where I'm about to insert my needles, as you will see here shortly. So now I take my second piece of tape. Again, I just measured it, and now I fold it again, uh, sticky side to sticky side, okay, to form a non-sticky side. Yeah, I just want to create a little bit of tension here, okay, just a little bit, so then that way when I bring the two non-sticky sides together, when I bring it together, as you can see, I can cinch this wound close. And you don't want to mess with the wound too much, but I'm just doing this just to show you, obviously, for demonstration purposes. But if it's a real wound, obviously you don't want to be messing with it too much. But you just want to be able to quickly assess whether you can bring the tension together properly. And feel free to readjust the tape as necessary. So then you have the proper amount of tension when you bring the two non-sticky sides together. Now you take the needle, it's just a regular sewing needle, and there's different techniques for forming the knot at the end. Uh, I like to make a larger knot, just so then that way when I make my initial needle insertion, this knot is going to anchor everything, okay? As you will see here, I make my uh, entry. So the needle is going to go through the two non-sticky sides, as you can see. It never touched the skin, and it never goes through the skin. So you see the knot right there that I made. Uh, that is the anchor for my first stitch that I'm about to create right here. So I push needle back through, and pulling it through, tucking is secure. You just want to give it a really good pull, right? And now I've got my first stitch. And you just want to make sure it's secure. And so by doing that, if the wound is actually gaping, or if there's a deep gash, that would secure the wound together. So then you bring the needle back. And now you just made your second stitch. And then you drive it through a third time. I think there's just so much utility to having a sewing needle and bringing it with you doing camping. I mean, it's such a small portable piece of tool, but it's so useful and has so much different utilities. I mean, besides patching different things like patching a tent or patching clothes or making simple sutures. I mean, there's just so much other things you can do with a needle and threads. So you continue to make these stitches until you get to the very end, after which you should have about 5 to 6 stitches. Now at this point you should have a very secure wound closure in place, right? As you can see here, it's very secure and the wound is very snugly cinched together. And now there are many different ways of tying the knot to secure the end at the finish. So I won't go through the detail of showing how to do that in this video, but there's other videos that you can look up that can demonstrate that. So I just use one of many techniques to basically form a simple knot, and I cinch down on the end to make that little knot at the end. Now let's just say that I did not make that anchor at the end. Another way you can do without making that knot is you can simply just cut it, like what I just did just now. So, so by cutting it, you can also anchor that that thread down, and essentially you're securing that thread by laying it over the base, right? And you take a second piece of tape and you just tape it down, which is what you should do anyways, is you take a second piece of tape and you secure the base, right? And we want to do that on the other side too. So we want to take, so at the end of the stitches that we make, we want to take a couple pieces of tape, and we want to be able to anchor down and secure both sides of the base. And so as you can see now, this is the finished product, and it's very secure. It leaves the wound perfectly cinched together, protected from the environment, and unexposed. And as you can see, it's very simple to make. Probably took me about just a few minutes to make this wound closure, and it's very easy to take off if you choose to. And notice that the wound is protected by the non-sticky side, right? So even when I peel off this wound closure, notice that the sticky sides are never touching anywhere near the wound itself. Okay, so you can always check and recheck the wound every few hours, and without compromising this wound closure technique. Now it's important to remember to always check and recheck the wound, and remember to irrigate the wound every 6 to 8 hours. You just want to be able to flush out the bacteria pretty frequently, and if you have to reapply the wound closure, it's not a big deal. It's a very easy technique to do. So here I want to show you a different technique. This is when you don't have a sewing needle available. This is the butterfly closure system. So you make 2 incisions on the tape on one side, like so, okay? And what you do now is you flip it around to the other side, and you make 2 more cuts, like so. And this technique is pretty simple, and it's pretty effective as well, and a very time saves a lot of time. So what you do now is you take the middle sticky parts and you fold them in on each other to create a non-sticky middle. Okay, so you fold one end over, and now you do the other end, like so. and now you just created what you see, that butterfly shape, and this is why it's called a butterfly closure system. So you take the sticky side now, kind of line it up to where you can create reasonable tension. Okay, and so you place one side of the sticky side down, and then you apply gentle pressure with one hand and traction with the other, right? And so you bring the wound edges together. And as you can see, the edges come together very nicely with minimal tension. And you can put a couple more of these butterfly management systems on, as many as 2 to 3 on this particular length of laceration. And you can bring the wound edges together quite nicely. And these are just a couple systems. There's other variations out there. And that's it. That's the wound management system. Thanks for watching.